Marie Margarita Plummer is the author of The Bolero of Andy Rowe, a short story collection set in her hometown of Los Angeles and exploring her Mexican and Irish heritage. She will read an excerpt from The Desert in Green, a border story.
Calexico, California, present day. The first time I met Miguel, he was climbing a fence. He had a backpack, brown, with a big green patch sewn over one side. It wasn't the dark green of our uniforms, more like grass. I remember thinking, as I told him to get down, that it was the first time in days, maybe weeks, that I had seen that color. "You caught me," he said in Spanish, hopping down and upsetting the dirt. He held up his hands, not over his head, but forward, his palms open to the sky. I checked him out and reported the pickup on the radio. "¿Quieres algo?" I asked, handing him a bottle out of the supply I kept. They could always use water. "El negro habla español," he said, pleased. Most people are surprised to hear the first few words come out. My accent natural, the rhythm smooth. Spanish was my first language, spoken to me by my Tijuana-born mother. But they don't know that. It takes them a second to catch on, to understand that language coming from this black skin. I can actually see their growing ease as they take in my expressions, even my body language. I'm familiar to them. I had only been on the job a few months. I'd run down a few guys, ducked a few punches. I'd never fired my gun except in practice. Since high school, I'd held several security jobs at hotels, museums, and the like. Those usually involved asking people to step back from paintings and locating misplaced digital cameras. I even had my stint as a bouncer at a strip joint, making good enough friends with the girls so that I developed a dislike for going as a customer, earning booze from the guys who went to the ones in nearby Mexicali. But Border Patrol, this Homeland Security, was something different. Following the rules, keeping the law, these were things that had always seemed so straightforward. When I was a kid, my mom would have to pull me away from reading the rules posted at public swimming pools. She said I was born to be a cop. The second time I caught Miguel was like running into an acquaintance on the street. "El negro todavía habla español," he said, and I laughed. A lot of people on both sides of the border called me El Negro. I recognized him by his smile. Also, my brother's name was Miguel. I waited with him while they did the routine background check at the station. He unzipped his backpack and withdrew a sketchbook. He closed the backpack very quickly. Even though we'd already searched it, all his belongings spread out on a table. "Es el desierto, esto también." The pages showed landscapes of the desert. By just handling them, he was getting powder on his fingers. Yellows, purples, greens, and reds. But they were the kinds of drawings where it didn't matter if they got smudged. I spent a lot of my time watching the desert. My job was to find things in it. I was trained to respond to movement, whistles in the dark. Miguel's drawings made me think of being in the desert, but without the watching and the waiting part, or a waiting of a different kind. A lot of the guys crossing make connections along the way. The groups I found could have from 3 to 30 guys. They devised simple strategies involving lookouts and diversions. But Miguel was always alone. He said you couldn't trust those other men. You had to rely on yourself. And doing that, you were able to hear God speak to you. Even in the desert, is what he said.